You said is that it was unlikely to produce pain, and that's why it wasn't a use of force. You now just said that it could produce pain. And so, regardless of the officer's intent, if this act that we're looking at here in Exhibit 17 could produce pain, would you agree that what we're seeing here is a use of force? And so the defendant is on top of Mr. Floyd.
His knee is on top of his.
And you can't see where his other knee is in this photograph, is that right?
That's correct.
But you have reviewed the body-worn camera footage, correct?
I have.
And you've looked at the other exhibits that have been submitted in this case, or no?
Most of them.
Okay. And so you're aware that now what we're looking at here is the defendant's left knee on top of Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware at this point in time that the defendant's right knee is also on top of Mr. Floyd?
I believe it was on his arm or to the side of his body.
You believe it was on his arm?
Yes.
Okay. On top of him, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so, to answer my question, the defendant is on top of Mr. Floyd on Exhibit 17. Is that right?
Again, when I say on top, I think he's laying his complete body on top of Mr. Floyd. What I see is the knee positions.
Okay. Both knees on top of Mr. Floyd.
Yes.
Okay. And also, are you aware that the defendant weighed approximately 140 pounds at the time this took place? Were you aware of that by your review of the records?
Yes.
And in your experience, does the clothing and equipment that the defendant is wearing in Exhibit 17, could that add some amount of weight to the defendant?
Yes.
And that would then increase the amount of pressure or force being placed on Mr. Floyd at this time. Is that right?
It could.
Okay. And so looking then at Exhibit 17 and just starting with the fundamental premise of your testimony that what we're seeing here is not a use of force, I need to ask you if you believe that it is unlikely that orienting yourself on top of a person on the pavement with both legs is unlikely to produce pain?
It could.
What do you mean it could? Is it unlikely to produce pain, or is it likely to produce pain?
I'm saying it could produce pain.
It could.
Yes.
And if it could produce pain, then, again, just looking at your premise, if it could produce pain, then it would be a use of force, wouldn't it?
If the officer's intent was to inflict pain, that would be use of force?
Not the officer's intent, sir. What you said is that it was unlikely to produce pain, and that's why it wasn't a use of force. You now just said that it could produce pain. And so, regardless of the officer's intent, if this act that we're looking at here in Exhibit 17 could produce pain, would you agree that what we're seeing here is a use of force?
Shown in this picture, that could be a use of force.
Okay. If you'd take that down.